Brian? Thank you. I guess we have, oh, that's 7:01.
It's fast.
That's fast, because I'm at work. Okay, good evening. I would like to call the open part of our session, our regular board meeting, back in order. Noting that we did start at 6 o'clock, so the meeting has been opened and all of that, but here we are, back in open session. I want to thank everybody for being here. The first thing I need is approval of the minutes from our May 12th meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Anybody have any concerns about those in any way? If not, all in favor of approving them, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. I need approval of the agenda. Any changes, Dr. Brown?
There are no changes tonight.
Okay.
Motion to approve. Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have no public comment, so we are lucky enough to have a student report tonight. We didn't think we would, so come on up, Abigail and Alina. Thank you for putting us on your schedule.
Yeah, so we just kind of have a little endless recap of the stuff that happened at the end of the school year and a little bit of what to expect for next school year.
Perfect.
So starting off, our spring musical for next year has already been announced and is The Lightning Thief, which is based off of the Percy Jackson book, so it's very
Wow,
exciting.
that is fun.
And then the orchestra, for their trip to Scotland, they're just having fundraisers and trying to raise that money. So that's going on.
And then for the last couple of years, choir has been trying to go to New York as a trip, but they just haven't had the numbers to actually make that happen. So we're considering a trip somewhere more within distance next year, maybe to Chicago or something like that. So some student input has been being put into that. And then moving on to sports, softball went through one round of playoffs. They ended up losing after that, but they did a lot better this year than we have in past years, which is really good.
Track sent many of their students to state, and they're just getting back from that, which was Friday and Saturday.
And then girls tennis also has a new head coach for next fall, and I believe they had a contact time a couple weeks ago just to meet with him and about his plans for next season. And then moving on to school, graduation happened and that went very well.
We've had some guest speakers in the medical classes and some of the vet science and psych classes, which is just getting students excited about those careers. And then there have also been ag trips to vet clinics recently, so that's something cool happening.
Yeah. There's also just some jobs that the school district offers. Like, I know a lot of people in our grade participate in the summer school helping. And then just this year, too, a couple students are becoming PAC tech assistants as well.
Oh,
And then freshman mentoring for next year, just the upperclassmen that are helping out with freshman first day and all that stuff. Some training will be happening over the summer. And then academic awards were handed out to students.
And then finals week just finished up today, so that was just our last day today, along with 3 days last week as well. And then in homeroom last week we had a final year survey, and we got to see the statistics for those. And we just compared the statistics from all year. I think we took it a total of 3 times throughout the year. And we saw a consistent decline in the number of students saying that they felt cared about in their classroom and feeling supported and respected in the school environment. Most of the other statistics stayed pretty neutral, which obviously we don't want to see a decline, and neutral isn't always the greatest. We want to see a rise, so definitely something we'll consider for next year as on the student council officer team and just in general.
Moving on to clubs, the student council had their trip to Devil's Lake with the new officers, kind of announcing all the new ones and then just those that have been reelected. And then the pickleball tournament was June 9th, so I think that's today. Yeah.
And then some clubs are also going to continue to have activities over the summer. I know for sure student council and FFA have some set dates for those, but I mean other clubs I think are definitely going to add some over the summer as well.
And then the Dane County Youth Governance Program for 9th through 11th graders interested in working with the local government jobs.
And then also Molly Schaefer at the high school who did a lot of the portraits of the student athletes that were up during, I think they were up during signing week and some of the art show as well. She got interviewed by national television, which is just a very cool opportunity. And I think some students who had the portraits made of them also were invited to that as well.
Yeah, well, that's all we have for our little recap. We just wanted to say thank you for allowing us to have this opportunity, and we're excited to do this again next year.
Both of you will be here again.
Yes.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So you both won your elections?
Yes.
Awesome, congratulations,
Thank you.
great.
Congratulations. So on behalf of the board, we have some certificates for you. So Vanessa, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. Always enjoyed your report.
Thank you guys for a good year.
Thanks so much.
Are you coming to July?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to board reports. If anybody has anything that you would like to kind of highlight and tell us about since our last meeting, feel free.
I just had an enjoyable experience going to the FFA banquet. I couldn't stay for the whole thing, but so totally impressed with the caliber of kids there, the leadership, the poise of the leaderships, and the achievements that were announced at the banquet. Just really terrific program to see the numbers that we have. I think, Brian, you can relate to when you first came, how you had, it's a little different story today, it built and grew, and so it's great to see that. So kudos to the advisors for that program. And the second thing was the same thing with the CTE celebrations, to see the numbers of students presenting, their poise, their confidence, their knowledge, how much they got from their programs. It was just a joy to see that many kids telling their story.
Yeah,
I was there for that too. It was really fantastic.
yeah. I had an opportunity to drop into that too. It was amazing. The kids and just walking around and hearing their stories.
Well, and the community, because so many of them are involved in community initiatives, so that for them to have that kind of support, to get that experience, that too was equally exciting and something we're celebrating.
Yeah, and the breadth of opportunities.
Yes.
It isn't just the trades anymore. It's just one girl wants to be a heart surgeon, and what she was doing to, move along that path. I mean, it was just the goals and the places that they're pointing was really quite amazing. Well done.
Great big shout out to Michelle McGlynn. It was
Yeah.
so well done. I thought that, I didn't realize it was the first.
Yes.
But it was so well done. So kudos to Michelle for putting that together. I just thought that's what we did. It was just so well done.
Yeah,
So
it was.
the best is yet to come, I'm sure. If that was the first, the second will be, and the third and the fourth and so on will be amazing. But it was well done. So just wanted to give a shout out to her as well.
Anybody else? I would like to just comment on the staff retirement recognition banquet that Mark and I were at, and the work that Brian put into that, and the kind of just the overall feeling of accomplishment that you kind of portrayed with the individuals there was very well done. It was just a wonderful evening, so thank you for doing that. I also got to go to the 4K end of the year celebration at the library. You have to try it some year. It's really fun. It is, they are so excited about moving on to kindergarten, and they have their little signs, 2038.
Yeah.
So I did the math on how old
gosh.
I'd be, and I'm going, oh my God. Anyway, it was a very fun evening, so lots of fun end of the year events that got to take part in. Anybody else have anything to share? Saw my first lacrosse game. That was, actually I saw two, and they're moving on to state, so that's always fun. All right, moving on to committee reports, starting with our DEI committee.
So we met with Tiffany Loken and went through the comprehensive plan and any revisions that, Tiffany let us know about any revisions that would be made for 2026.
And we are just, there's no motions or anything? All right. Any questions on those minutes? Moving on to policy. And I know we have a few there that we need to.
We do have a few here, one of them in particular, that we'll get to, it's like the third or fourth one, but I think we'll turn this over to Steve to comment on them.
Thank you, Ted. There's a couple that I do want to comment on in relationship to the board workshops that were held earlier this year. So following up on the board workshops, there are two policies that we brought forward for revision. The first one is the fund balance policy, and one of the things that we talked about at the board workshop was changing the fund balance policy from a goal of 15% to a goal of a range from 10 to 15%. So this is just bringing forward that discussion that took place a few months ago. The second one related to the board workshop was the rule on purchasing policy. And at the board workshop as well, Dr. Brown brought forward a suggestion to revise our longstanding purchasing policy to change some of the approval levels. So the board did review that at the board workshop, felt good about that, and then we brought that forward into the purchasing policy. The board's role in the policy remains the same. So the board still has to approve the same type of purchases that were done before. Administratively, it looks a little different than it did previously. The open enrollment one, I do want to talk about, especially regarding the importance of communication and working with Annie on this one. So the state law on open enrollment provides school boards with some options within the overall parameter of the open enrollment program. And one example of those options is regarding students who are currently residents in your district who move out. Another option is related to siblings of open enrollment students that have already been accepted. So under state law, there's a couple of options in the school board. One is the school board can guarantee acceptance. A second option, or middle of the road approach, is to give preference. And a third option is to give no guarantee or nor a preference, and their application would be just like all the other ones you receive. Our policy for over 20 years has been to guarantee acceptance of residents who move out or when you have a sibling who's applying to come in. What we have realized through experience over time is that guaranteed acceptance basically then trumps all other board policies like class size. The concerning element of that would be even if we have a particular grade where the number of students is exceeding the policy level that you as a board want, guaranteed acceptance means we will then continue to increase class sizes in that grade level, and that then trumps the open enrollment policy. Open enrollment then trumps class size. Another situation is when our special ed director, Tiffany Loken, presents to you as a board the availability in all of the special ed programs. We then utilize that availability to apply to the majority of open enrollment applications, but we cannot use that for guaranteed acceptance open enrollment. So if you had a chance to open up the policy and look at it, you will have seen that the recommendation is to switch those two categories of students from guaranteed to preferred. And so what preferred would mean is their applications would be approved automatically before other students that are new to us, but they would not trump existing class size policies or special ed availability. So we brought that forward now. Even though this doesn't have to be done until next January, the most important part of this is really working with Annie in letting our families know, if approved tonight, letting our families know that, as an example, if you're a current Waunakee family and you were considering, as an example, building a home in Dane on the Lodi side, right now their understanding is they can do that and then continue to be enrolled in Waunakee. We would want them to understand that the status has changed from guaranteed to preferred. We would encourage all families in that situation to reach out to us before they would make that type of a decision, because we can very easily look to see where are we at with class size in that particular school or grade, where are we at if there's an IEP included, to give them a sense of, you know, the situation and what the risk may or may not be if they choose to do that. So we would really want to encourage families to reach out to us before making a decision like that. So we'll count on Annie on helping us get this message out if the board does go in that direction. There were some minor changes in here, just clarifying we use a computer system to randomly, you know, select students and that. But the main one really has to do with really a long-standing practice, switching from guaranteed to preferred. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that board members might have about that.
So the changes don't affect a student who's been accepted. Once they're in, regardless of the class size impact, they're in all the way through till they finish, if they wish to.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. So if we make a policy change tonight, it would apply to the open enrollment period for the 2026-2027 school year. It would not apply to anyone that has previously been applied for the fall of 25. It also wouldn't apply to anyone who has been previously accepted under the open enrollment policy from the past, with one exception that I want to make sure I note. State law and board policy does allow the district to require a reapplication at one transition period. That's put in place, so as an example, if a district is having facility issues at like the high school, the district has the right under state law to say all incoming ninth graders have to apply again, no matter what happened the entire time they were in the district. Our policy allows that, state law allows it. Administratively, we've never implemented it, but it still remains as a possibility.
Okay.
I have one quick question. So in the scenario of a family that had kids in the district and moved out of the district, is there a possibility that, like, if they have two kids, one of their children would get to stay in the district and the other one might not have a spot anymore?
Sure, that's a great question. So the scenario that you're describing is if we switch to away from guaranteed to preferred, each of the students' applications would then be based on the class size for that particular situation, or the special ed program capacity if they happen to have an IEP. So either student both students would then be viewed in the preferred range. However, the good news for them is then they could always continue to apply. So let's say one student's approved and one isn't. they could continue to apply under the preferred element and have a much better chance of joining their sibling in the future than someone who would be new to us. But yes, that situation could occur and has occurred in the past when we've had someone, we've had families apply in the past when they're new to us, where let's say their 4K student is approved. They might have an older sibling in 2nd grade with an IEP and we don't have space. We've approved the 4K student, have not approved the 2nd grade student. In the subsequent year, then the 2nd grade student, when they go into 3rd, they've applied under the guarantee of our previous policy, then they join us. Now, in that scenario, the student would have to be preferred. So it could lead in some situations where, depending on the grades in the school, there might be a separation of schools for a family, which is one of the concerns that I know the board has had in the past about that level of approval. But unfortunately, there's not a way to separate that out from the, let's say, class size policy or special ed program. But it is a possibility, and I will say that has existed in the past as well, when families new to us have had multiple students apply.
Right, but in that case, they've known that it was just gonna be 1 extra year.
Yep.
In this
Yep.
case, there wouldn't be a guarantee of
There
anything
would-
in subsequent years.
Yep, there wouldn't be a guarantee, but there would be a preference. So again, if they applied in the future year and if the situation has changed, and the situation does change, I think it's important to note, we always share with families, as an example, the board class size policy in grades K1 and 2 is different than 3 and 4. So we've always told families that, as an example, if in 2nd grade they're not approved because our class size policy, it's almost a guarantee in 3rd grade they could get approved, because when we move up in class size, you think about how many sections we don't have that many people apply across all 3 schools. So we do work with families and help them understand what is the best time for them to do that, so that they would be able to be most successful with that, which in the elementaries, it's going into 3rd grade is the best time for them to do that.
Thank you. So Ted, I know we're going to kind of switch information with different administrators. Should we take this chunk, or you want to do them all?
I think it would be good to do them individually. It's
With-
a little bit different than
Yeah.
last time, because we've gone through and
Yeah.
those are revamping, these are kind of specially brought back, I think.
Yeah,
They require-
I guess I'd like to do
Yeah, I
that, because
agree.
there'll be definitely different discussions. So I would like a motion, if we're ready, for the first 3 on the fund policy, the purchasing policy, and the open enrollment policy. We'll take those, because then it kind of shifts content.
Motion to approve it.
Second.
Any other questions on any of the first 3? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Perfect, thank you. So now we're going to move on to the next items. And, Brian.
Student staff relationship policy.
Yeah, so this is an existing policy that we have, or a rule, and so this is the addendum to, or modification to this policy comes on the end. This is something that we've been talking about throughout much of the school year. Administratively reviewed it, offered it to a number of employees, WTA, for their feedback, and kind of this is the language it landed on. So I guess I would take any questions that anyone would have.
Any questions? If not, I would take a motion to approve the new staff student relationship policy.
So moved.
Second.
So, Rebecca, are you good with a few people here?
I picked a couple.
Okay, Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Thank you. And I see Amy has popped up for this 3rd to 4th grade promotion one.
So this is a new policy. It's required by the state for the Reading Legislation Act 20. And we received 3 sample policies as part of the PRG. So kind of small, medium, large. So based on the level of detail and the content of those, I'm recommending that we approve policy 2 with a little bit of added clarity from version 3. If you look at the samples, it has all of the editorial notes and the rationale, but if you just look at the clean version, you can see how it would read as the final version. This is something that we need to have on the books by July 1, but we don't need to implement it until September 1, 27.
A comment that was made at the policy meeting is because we have a whole year before it implements, we don't have the data that would show the impact of the numbers. And I guess I just feel we need to look at that next year as we go through, because I know we need to have it on the books, and that's what we're gonna do tonight. But we have a whole year to look at the data of what we're gonna find in the testing to really look at that grade promotion. So, and that was something that was mentioned at the meeting. Any other comments from you, Ted, or?
No, that's a good point. I think there's a lot of opportunity in policy for other input in it, overrides or something like that, in order to make sure that I think the right decision will be made.
But I think we have to communicate clearly with the community as well, because it's a shift.
It is definitely a shift.
Right.
Mhm. Any other questions? If not, I would like a motion for this standalone policy.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. And the graduation requirement, is that
Yes.
Tim?
Tim, do you want to speak to the graduation requirement, please?
And it's really just a minor change, but there might be some things you want to offer?
So we have 2 policies in your catalog of policies that relate to graduation. One are the very specific graduation requirements. They're the things you typically think of with respect to courses, distribution of credits, things of that nature. This policy, which we're asking be revised, relates to the actual ceremonial recognition. And for a long time, probably as we were talking about it in committee, it goes back generations to a time, where, we just approach some things very differently as a practice. We've had this requirement that you have to have a certain amount of attendance, calculated in a very unique way. There were a lot of carve-outs for things that did or did not count. And you had to meet that target in order to participate in the actual exercise, the ceremony. The concept here is if a student has really met the graduation requirements in all other respects, since it's a once-in-a-lifetime event, once in a lifetime for the student, as important, maybe more importantly, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the family, would we have the attendance component be a bar from participating in the ceremony? We think it should be removed. The other thing is some of the specifics of it, depending on what was causing your attendance issue. Some situations got more favorable treatment in the old policy than others. vacations got more favorable treatment than maybe if you were in a situation where you had to sometimes help out with a younger sib at home or something like that. So kind of cutting to the chase, we're asking that the attendance requirement be removed from this policy.
Okay, so I would take a motion on that. So moved. Second.
Motion to approve.
Second. So Mark, second. Heather and Mark.
Sorry.
It's okay. Any discussion on that before we vote on that? I actually think it's a good move, and it is a barrier.
I think it's student-centered.
Yeah.
Plus, you look at the myriad of potential reasons why a student is unable to meet that standard. If they're meeting all the other criteria, why would we want to punish them?
Yeah.
And the family.
And the parents. and the
That's right.
Grandparents.
Right.
It's more pro-student, so I agree with that. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Great.
Thank you.
And lastly, we have copyright policies. Anybody going to talk about
Yes,
those?
Tim,
or-
Tim.
I don't know if,
Tim has
don't
been
want to
leading the way.
belabor
Leading
your
the way
precious
with that
time. This is some of the policies of our major overhaul that we hadn't teached yet. And, quite frankly, content and intellectual property have evolved significantly since the last time we really did major revisions. So what we're doing here is we're going with the recommended WASB policy for this area. We are updating our local rule on some of the more specifics to make it up-to-date, contemporary. We did this working closely with our library media staff. They're really the specialists in the building that work with educators on intellectual property and copyright. And then we had a local rule that was very procedural, very anachronistic, kind of looking at print content. That is, Rick Franz, our Director of Technology, and I reviewed it with our library media staff. We just felt it was not the type of thing that needed to be in policy, and quite frankly, in today's modern era, the scenario it was applying to was much more limited than it might have been 20, 25 years ago. So, updating the main policy to the WASB model language, updating our local rule to make it up to date, and removing a very anachronistic local rule.
Perfect.
The rule two.
Thank you, Tim. So I would take a motion on the new copyright policies.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any questions that Tim could answer?
Only Tim?
And only Tim, probably. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. Thank you for keeping those all up to date. Moving on to curriculum committee, and I see Tim is staying.
Yeah. Do you mind if I do the quick?
Please.
Okay. We will get to the two items that require board review and voting, but there were two things that we covered in the curriculum committee that don't require a vote. A lot of really good content was covered. I promise I won't say this every month, but this is one where I would recommend to my fellow board members to watch the video.
Yes.
Specific to the Elevate presentation that was given. Elevate, in a nutshell, is a program that's voluntary for teachers to participate in. And it's, I'm reading my little thing because I wrote it up, meant to elevate teacher efficacy by working through student voice. So throughout a year or a semester, teachers are working through their curriculum, and then students are given an opportunity to comment and lend their voice to how effective that curriculum has been. And there are other aspects of it, but really no summary here would do that presentation justice. So I do ask you guys to roll back the tape, dating myself, and watch that one. And then the second piece was presented we were just talking about student outcomes and how the things we do as a school board and as a school district affects student outcomes. This was specific to students who have participated in interventions for both reading and math, or reading or math, I should say. And there is a very good presentation that was pulled together, so if you prefer to read it rather than watch it, the attachment's in the curriculum board book meeting. And there's good visual representations of the data, or if you'd rather watch it be explained, then continue past the Elevate presentation through to the intervention update, and then you'll have it presented to you as well. But a lot of good information, and I promise I won't say that every month to go back and watch it. And that brings us then to the things that do require voting. Do you want me to keep rolling, or do you want to?
Keep rolling and I can be your phone a friend.
Okay.
To also go back to an older.
Any questions on the two that I just, okay. The first aspect that requires a vote is legally, once a year, the board is meant to review and vote on the testing schedule for 25, 26, every school year, but it's the testing schedule. So we're talking about how these are regularly occurring throughout the year. So this is more procedural and administrative in nature. Are there questions about next year's testing schedule? Okay.
So we need a motion for that.
So moved?
Second.
Anybody want to comment? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Thank you.
Okay. And then the next one, Monica, or
Yeah,
sorry,
I
Dr.
can-
Brown?
Yeah, I can take that one. I'll take the lead on proposing a new priority goal, number one. So just have a little bit I'd like to share. As a district committed to the mission of children, community, and committed to excellence, tonight I'd like to encourage the board to adopt a more ambitious academic achievement goal that reflects both our values and our capacity for excellence. I am advocating for revising our current academic achievement target to aim for all of our school buildings to significantly exceed expectations on the Wisconsin State Accountability Report Card by 2029. This goal builds upon the progress we've made since the pandemic and aligns with our district-wide commitment to continuous improvement. Prior to my arrival, curriculum adoptions have been approved and implemented, professional development plans implemented, and the continuation of professional learning communities. Over the past year, we have implemented robust systems to support this work, including continued professional development in the continuous improvement space with our partnership with CETA 2, and the formation of school-based continuous improvement teams, leadership teams, guiding coalitions. The name of the team is not what's really important. What happens inside those spaces as it relates to academic achievement for our students is what is important. These teams will drive data-informed decision-making, including strategies tailored to the needs of each building. At the same time, we instituted principal POCs this year. Our theme this year focused intensively on reducing chronic absenteeism, one of the key barriers to student success. With our journey this year, I am pleased to report that we do have some encouraging data to show measurable improvements around chronic absenteeism. Furthermore, our partnership with CETA 2 has strengthened our leadership capacity through the notion of continuous improvement for administrators and instructional coaches, ensuring a shared understanding of implementation strategies across all levels. We are very fortunate to have the necessary resources and structures in place to support this bold goal. And evidence from some of our schools where expectations are already significantly exceeding demonstrates that this level of achievement is not only possible but sustainable with the right focus. With an intentional approach to implementation and ongoing measurement of progress, I am confident that we can elevate every building to this high standard. This proposal is not new to the board. Initial discussions began with the previous Board of Education during our February board workshops, and a special meeting was held with Heather, Chris, and Carly to ensure continuity and understanding and to address any questions they may have had before advancing the conversation to the full board. Moving forward with this revised goal reflects our shared belief in the capability of our students, our staff, and our community to achieve excellence when supported by strategic, data-driven efforts. I ask you to go to your folders. You will have, and it also was posted online, you will see two two items there, the 23-25 goals, and then also the 25-27 goals. The goal in question this evening is priority goal number 1. That is the only one that is changing, or the ask for a change. All the other goals remain the same. The 25-27 goals, what you see in red there are initiatives that we that are new as of this year, and also includes information that had transpired in previous years in order to impact academic achievement. So the ask for this evening is to revise our priority goal number 1. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. And it was approved by committee 3-0 to advance to the full board as well.
Not seeing a lot of questions, so I would take a motion to approve these.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And anybody have anything that you want to add to the comments? And I appreciate your comments, Dr. Brown. It is an aggressive goal, but I do think if we don't make that goal, it's just.
Keep
It's
trying.
continuous improvement.
It's
Keep trying.
continuous improvement, that's right. It's a good place to be aiming.
I
Okay.
appreciate the comprehensiveness of the plan. I mean, you have the goal, but the sub-steps to get there really cover all the bases. So a lot of foresight went into this, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for finalizing that.
You're welcome.
Moving on to the budget committee. I see Ally coming up.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Ally. First area is consideration for draft 2 of the budget.
Yes, at the committee meeting, we reviewed the second draft of the budget. The second draft still has the same assumptions as the first draft, as we haven't had a final draft of the state budget yet. There were a few minor changes. We updated Fund 50 based on the fees that were approved at the May board meeting. We also updated Fund 21, and then we also added nursing 1.0 FTE for a student at one of our elementary schools. We currently contract with a nursing service, but thought it would be more cost effective to have a nurse on our staff servicing this student. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we'd be looking for approval.
And, yeah, I would take a motion to approve second draft of the budget.
second draft.
Second.
Any comments, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. And we have the lease agreements.
This year, we only have one lease agreement for the Wisconsin Youth Company. We do a nominal increase each year to reflect inflation, and this year it would be going from $2,900 for the school year to $3,000 per building.
And we offer that at 4 buildings or 3? Do we offer
All
that
three
intermediate?
schools, yes.
Just 3, just our K-4 buildings.
Correct.
Motion to approve?
And Heather? Any questions on that? It's a great service for our community. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay.
Fund
Ally's
balance.
considering.
Yes, so each year the board is required to approve the fund balance classifications. These are the final audited numbers from 23-24, and then wouldn't be updated again until the end of our audit for 24-25. So we would just be looking for approval of these amounts.
So I would take a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. And our final.
Yes, so every year in June, we bring the budget revisions for the fiscal year to the school board. This year, the changes included grant allocations. We also received our final common school fund allocation for the school year. We had to update the transfer between Fund 10 and Fund 27. And then also, the Budget Committee approved us to move expenditures between Fund 10, 49, 50, and 73 to have a balanced budget for this fiscal year. So all of the changes are reflected in the attachment, but if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we would look for approval of this as well.
So I would take a motion to approve unless you want to ask Ally something first.
Motion to approve. Unless someone said it.
You said it, I'll second it though.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thanks, Ally.
Thank you, Ally.
Moving on to the facility committee, I'm hoping that the board members had an opportunity to read the document from our gymnastics coach and the kids that spoke. We did have a public comment at our facility committee meeting, which made that maintenance item, I think, pretty appropriate and necessary. Stated a good plan for that. So we really just have some capital projects to approve. I see John moved up, and there are some things you might want to ask about. Kind of excited to look at some of our robotic floor scrubber. We've chosen to do one at the high school and the vacuum, but that I think has good potential for our future in keeping up with our maintenance and with our facilities. So anyway, the list is there. Please look it over. If you have any questions between Steve and John, I think they could probably answer them.
So Joan, if I could add that the list that's in front of you was the list that we shared with the facility committee last week. If you see in the notes, the facility committee did recommend approval with the exception of reducing the robotic vacuum and scrubber to one of each and placed in the building decided by the director of facilities. So on the request list, you would have seen that the original request for the facility committee meeting was larger than one. During the discussion, the committee was interested in piloting the technology in the building of choice from John Kramer to purchase one of each and to see how this technology might be effective moving forward. In the past, John has been continuously evaluating this technology for future use in our buildings. During the discussion on Heritage Elementary School, John was considering bringing forward a request for robotic cleaners, but held back on those requests because he felt that the technology wasn't cost effective at that time. So John has continued researching it and is bringing it forward, especially with an eye on the future middle school opening to try to prove out if this technology is capable of cleaning large spaces. So I know this is an area of interest of John's, technology and efficiencies. If you wanted to add anything, John, go ahead.
No, I think we learned a lot through the opening of the Heritage Building and the modern technology and modern floor surfaces we have there with polished concrete and less carpet and less waxing of floors. I think it's a great opportunity for us to take advantage of these items going forward at the new middle school as well. We're learning that Heritage is a challenge. The old building was larger, but this building is more complex. So I think just bringing the newer technology into the middle school site would help the custodians and the crew and just get a lot more done.
So a question about the carpet robot. Is that envisioned for large areas only, or are you also looking at considering trying to utilize it in classrooms?
It's more effective in large areas. We had a demonstration of it in the LGA at Heritage and it worked perfectly. It maps the entire room, so I mean, I can name each building.
Sure.
The intermediate school, long hallway right off the front
Yep.
door has that carpet. Upstairs library at Heritage, all our libraries basically. Really helpful.
And do you anticipate, if this is successful, to have fewer custodial employees because of this, or just will you be able to redirect them? What do you
Yes,
envision?
I think currently it will not be able to replace humans yet, but we can absolutely redirect them to clean more glass, take care of other items that, again, the complex heritage layout in the cafeterias, for example, that requires more time for manual labor to clear out the furniture than we can send a robot in. So there's a trade-off for it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. So I would take a motion to approve the list, noting what Steve said, that we're just doing one-and-one, with hopefully that information coming back sometime next year on, how you see it working. But I would take a motion to approve the list.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any other questions you have? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Thank you. Moving on to co-curricular.
So
See Nick here.
Nick is here. And I'll just start off when Nick's getting situated. There's quite a few documents that Nick's bringing forth to the school board for approval. I do want to give Nick a shout out though for the coaches handbook. Did some great work on some updates there, especially around the emergency preparedness procedures. So we had a great conversation about lightning safety, how we're keeping our athletes, staff, and coaches safe during those type of events. And Nick did a great job updating that section, so appreciate it, Nick.
There weren't, the Booster Club handbook had come previously and we agreed to table that and move all the handbooks back a little bit while we were doing branding discussions. So in the background information, there's a quick summary of each of the changes to the handbooks. They're mostly editorial. The only thing that was struck out in the high school handbook was the language regarding eligibility, because that talked about pre-NIL and students becoming ineligible if they entered into a financial agreement for their athletic accomplishments or achievements. So that was struck out. It's still signed off. The eligibility bulletin is still signed off during the registration process, so there was really no need to have it in the Boost high school handbook as well. It was just a little bit redundant and open up the opportunity for things to not be corrected in two different locations and just have it in one spot.
Mark.
So I apologize, I didn't read the athlete's handbook. I got through the others. How is the NIL going to be overseen? Is that your job to make sure that it's within the WIA regulations? How does that work?
It's a good question. When it was passed for Wisconsin, it is not mandated that a family reports it to me if they're going to enter an NIL agreement. If they choose to, I'm definitely here as a resource to try and help them determine if they're able to go with that business, for example, if they've worked with the school in the past. We've kind of done a 180 in where we were looking at doing things a month ago, where we were talking about listing out all the businesses that the school, high school has worked with. And we don't want to do that because we don't want to miss somebody, and then a family looks at that site, didn't have to communicate to me, and then it turns out they're upset now because a company wasn't listed, or a business wasn't listed on that site, and have now become ineligible, and we have to go through the process of regaining eligibility. So if a family approaches me and wants to disclose that, we'll keep track of the business they're working with and then create our database off of that, so we at least know for sure that that business is out of the possibility for donation to a booster club or the high school at any point during that high school student's career. So if they're a senior, that just means one more year. If they're a freshman, that means for that year and the next 3, that business is out of the running to contribute to the high school through a donation or a gift in any way. So we will monitor it, but ultimately the rule is passed with the family, and the student has to take those steps when they meet with that business to ask them, have you donated to the high school, let's just say it's a sophomore, in the past 2 years? If they have, that's where the checks and balances comes in with the family doing that research up front first. And then I'm kind of like that second point or reevaluation if a business is maybe, not that they didn't come forward, but they forgot they made a donation and we end up discovering that. So I'm basically here to, if there is a violation, report it and then help the student regain eligibility. But it's largely taken.
So it's really their responsibility to make sure they're following the rules. So if I make a mistake and someone knows I made a mistake and they report it, then it's on me.
Yeah, and I gave the example, we had the workshop last Wednesday, and I gave the example, we had this situation even pre-NIL last spring, where we self-report, we get it corrected, and it was within 13 hours, the student went from ineligible to eligible, so that's the way the system's set up in Wisconsin. It's just because it's called NIL doesn't mean it's college and that NIL. It gets confused, I think, because of the language that's used for both.
Nick, can you comment about as far as the, if something like that's found out, you mentioned in the meeting in terms of it would be good to come to you, and in terms of not expediting it, but making sure it goes through the correct process instead of going to the WIA.
Yep, I think a lot of the, and I say this in the code meetings, but I think a lot of parents say, uh-oh, I made a mistake, let me tell person X at the WIA right away. And that's not wrong, but it complicates things a little bit versus coming to me and letting me handle that channel. And that's with anything WIA. Sure. If family reaches out to them first, they are often going to get redirected back to me. They might get a small response in that, but it's really important to work through me so that way we can go through the steps to get it cleaned up quickly, because I think a lot of times if a family reaches out first, they end up giving a very long description of what happened, and it's more information than exactly what fits that. So coming to me first, we work up. We would work with the person that's in charge of eligibility at the WNIA, file the official letter, and it's going to be a much smoother process versus guessing, or maybe I violated this, who do I contact first?
And I know there's a lot of onus on the family, but we still have the influential athlete, right, that WIA utilizes on retainer. So we still have workshops.
Yep. So we have them on retainer. The WIA used them last year to inform the athletic directors in the schools of what this potentially would look like for Wisconsin should it be passed. So influential athlete is here on retainer for us, or for myself to use as a resource in case of, hey, student family is thinking of doing this, would this be okay or not? I can ask them that question. I can always go to the WIA to ask that question as well. They hold 2 in-person workshops. Our first one was last Wednesday. The next one will be during the 25-26 school year at some point. In addition to those, they will do monthly webinars starting in September, and that's recorded and accessible to anybody that can't go to the workshop. And that's a Q&A too, so it's not just getting information, but families can directly ask questions in there. And even influential athlete will talk to the WIA to get clarity on some situations. So I think, as I said 4 months ago during the winter co-curricular meeting, this is new to everybody. Nobody's an expert at it, so we're going to ask for as much help as possible and resources, at least for this year, probably a couple of years, and then see if NIL changes at all, or how popular it's become amongst our students and families versus what we kind of hear and see on TV or think it might be.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Okay, so tonight we need to approve the list of handbooks that come from Nick's office. So moved.
Second.
Second. Anybody have any concerns about anything in those handbooks before we call a motion? Okay, motion to approve the list of handbooks you have. Say, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks.
Moving on, that ends our committee reports. Moving on to our administrative report. Starting with our disproportionality data, Tiffany.
Great, well, you had in board book, you have just some numbers. Really, the question came up, as we talk about our disproportionality plan and planning for next year and things that we want to adjust in the plan that Heather mentioned earlier that we're working on now. We don't have a revised plan quite finished, but some questions came up about like what do our specific numbers really look like, and kind of what direction are we trending in. So this is just kind of some overview data that you had in your board book that shows you total number of referrals. So these numbers only look at total numbers of initial special education referrals. It goes back to 2019. So in general, you'll see that the number of referrals is going up, and also the number of students qualifying is going up as well, which makes sense considering there's a lot more referrals. So it basically just outlines each year how many students were referred, how many students qualified, and in which particular demographic area. So this is just looking at our Black and African American students and also Hispanic students, because we're kind of on the cusp of being identified for Hispanic students. So this is one piece of information. And then I pulled together, looked at just our aggregates. We have a total of 21 students in the district that are African American and are in special education. So I just looked at I dug in and looked at each individual student to determine some questions. We wanted to answer some questions about, are these students that are moving into our district already identified in special education? Are these students that we've had for a long time and we've identified? What percentage of these students have been with us since 4K or kindergarten? So you'll see in the chart that I just passed around, just our total population. You'll see in yellow, when you look at the idea of disproportionality is pretty much laid out in the yellow spots. So you're looking at our total student population of white students and total students in special education, that's 10%. Then when you look at total students, African American students, and then total in special education, you'll see that that's 22.3%. So higher, so it's basically saying a student that is African American has twice the chance of being in special education in our particular district. And that's why we're identified as disproportionate. So it's interesting though to dig into the information. Actually, some of the things were a little bit surprising because my initial thought was, well, we have a lot of kids moving in and out. Like how many of these students are actually identified by us? But 76% of the 21 students were identified for special education in our district. And 62% have been with us either since 4K or kindergarten. And on average, when you look at all 21 students, on average, they're in our district at least 6 years at this point. So it's not necessarily, transient populations moving in and out. These are students that have been with us, that have been in our system. Of course, we still have a percentage that have been identified in other districts and come in. But it was really interesting to look at these numbers. And the other piece that was interesting is kind of the two major areas that students are being identified in is specific learning disability, where you'll see percent SLD. About 28% of those 21 students are under the category of specific learning disability. And another 28% is under other health impairment, or OHI. And those are kind of the two bigger areas where students fall into. And we talked about this, specific learning disability being more around academics, and probably other health impairment often being around attention and focus or behavior. So that's kind of how they're split up a little bit. So I just wanted to kind of give you some context and dig into the numbers a little bit more. One thing that was interesting though is the numbers are small. So when 1 or 2 students move in or out, that adjusts your percentages pretty significantly. So one family accounts for 20% of our students in special education, which is kind of interesting that if that one family was in, that would actually decrease us down to 18% instead of 22. So when the numbers are small, 1 or 2 kids makes a big difference, so.
To not be identified as disproportionality, do we have to get down to 10%?
No, we don't have to get down to 10%. We just have to be moving in the right, we have to be under, Tim could probably give me an exact number, but under that 20%, 22%, we have to be under 20% for sure.
Okay.
And then we have to continue moving in the right direction, obviously. So.
And they monitor you yearly?
Yes, yep. I meet with DPI 3 times a year, and they look at they look at a variety of different things. They look at our plan, they look at what progress we've made in our plan and what we're focusing on, and they also look at, academic data and some of those pieces as well. So one of our big pieces for next year that's gonna be part of our plan is digging into our multi-tiered systems of support in terms of looking at, that's kind of the pathway for how students get into special education, is if they're having academic or behavioral concerns, they have interventions, they work with reading interventionists, math interventionists, or with our student services staff if it's around behavior. So we have a lot of steps before we get to the point where we're doing a referral for special education. And so digging into that process and looking at, what are some of the systemic barriers, or why is this happening within our system? So,
Thank you.
Tiffany, whether, I don't care what population it is, but it would be interesting to see what percent of the identified are through parent request.
that would be really, that's one thing I was gonna add, like,
Because again,
Right.
if you just have 2 parent requests, your numbers in a smaller population, your numbers are just going to skyrocket. And I don't know if, I know there's funds that we have to redirect in order to do some of these things, and I think that's great, but I'm not sure it's the total picture.
Yeah.
Because of the small demographics that we have.
right. And for one family, all of the students in the family were referred by the parent, which they qualified, so it's not
Right.
that it wasn't maybe appropriate, but yeah, we do get a lot of parent
And
referrals, for sure.
and in terms of the DPI, I mean, I keep getting the sense that they feel we're doing something incorrectly here. We've got one of the greatest special ed programs in the state, and so I know we need to keep doing these things, but for me, it's a frustration.
Yeah, it's hard when it's such a small number of students, but yet it does show us that, especially in specific learning disability and OHI, like what kind of what else could we do to prevent some of those referrals? But you're right, you can't prevent a parent referral, and obviously when a parent refers, we have to do the evaluation. So.
Any other questions? Thank you, Tiffany, for providing that. Next, I asked to have an opportunity to just give a brief update on a program that we have called our Student Financial Assistance Fund. We have some new members on the board, and for families that are listening, I don't think it's a fund that gets the attention that it should rightly get, because it does so many wonderful things. So just a little history. It was established in 2018, and initially it was targeted for lunch support, to be sure that every student had the same lunch that any other student had, regardless of their financial needs. So it kind of started there, and then we had the pandemic and things, but I have to say in the last three and a half years, it has skyrocketed in the support it gives to our students in the whole community that have any financial barriers. And I just would like to list some of the things that are now being supported by our Student Financial Assistance Fund, starting with our AP exam testing fees, so that our students who might shy away from even taking an AP course, they don't have to, just because they couldn't afford that test at the end, because that is done by individual families have to support that testing. Our athletic booster club fees, our family teacher organization activities, like our back to school kickoff activities. In some years, we have an ice cream social. We give our families free admission and tickets so that all kids in the family can participate in those events. We have book fair vouchers for all of our kids that might have a financial barrier, so they can go and they can purchase books the same as anybody else. Class, school t-shirts, field and class trip fees. We make gift cards available to all of our social workers, so if they see a kid, and it happens a lot in the winter, if you don't have snow pants and boots, you don't get to go and play off of the or the blacktop. You have to stay on the blacktop if you don't have that gear. Our social workers notice those students and give gift cards to the families so they can purchase from Walgreens or Amazon and get the right gear so that the kids can participate. High school yearbooks or memory books throughout the district. Each year they give 1 to 2 scholarships for graduating seniors. And most recently, we have started partnership with our village programs so our younger athletes can have participation so they're ready when they get to high school to be on those teams that they might like to be on. So there's been a wonderful partnership formed with our community and our village programs. So I just wanted to make everybody aware of that, and I just would also like to acknowledge and thank the donations that come into this program. The school district, our business department puts in $5,000 to kind of help this fund, but we raise about $50,000+ each year from donations in our community partnerships that we have with vendors that work with our schools, and we give out that money every single year. So, you know, I've kind of looked at the books for the last 3 years, and each of them have been right around $50,000 in and $50,000 out for our students to keep that financial barrier that they might be experiencing. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and thank all of our people in the community that support our kids. So thank you.
And Joan, a good point is that this is anonymous, right, for the student or family once they.
Absolutely. Yes.
So the booster clubs or whatever sports entity it is, the other kids and families, they wouldn't know that.
They do not know that, and I think we're getting much better with the help of, you know, with the longevity that we've had this program and the help of Annie and Nick, and making sure that on all of the information that is handed out at Booster Club meetings, there's a little disclaimer there or information there. If you need financial help, you know, this is how you can get those dollars for you.
Yeah, that's great. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think it was even Bob at WASP for the new member orientation was talking about, and I forgot what the statistic was, but the raise in the GPA once kids have the ability to participate.
Absolutely.
They become part of that larger community, so it's a great program. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it's really, it's just grown, and it's really so supported by our social workers in all of our buildings. They meet monthly, they brainstorm, well, what else can we do? What else can we do? You know, they're always looking for ways to support kids, so I just wanted to be sure everybody had that information and to thank the community. All right, moving on to an end of the year report by Dr. Brown.
Yes, so as we all know, today is June 9th. I am 21 days away from completing my first year here in Waunakee. It has been great and exciting. Want to thank the board for your collaboration and your support to get us to where we're trying to go in terms of this idea of continuous improvement. Want to thank the central office team. Anything that's new, we know some changes come, and sometimes things can be a little uncomfortable sometimes. But we are coming together to do what's in the best interest of our students and families here in the Waunakee Community School District. I ask that you turn your eyes to a wonderful video that we were able to make in conjunction with one of our Warrior Media students to give you a high-level overview of all that we've accomplished for 24-25.
Waunakee students, staff, family, Board of Education members and community members. I am Dr. Monica Kelsey-Brown, proud superintendent of the Waunakee Community School District. As I wrap up my 5th year as a superintendent, certainly first in Waunakee, I want to take a moment to reflect on the incredible year we've had together. From classrooms to concerts and construction projects to championships, this year has been nothing short of extraordinary. Our students have amazed us all year long. They've competed on national stages, shared their voices in the arts, and pushed the boundaries of academic excellence. From national awards in media production, to math team victories, to standing ovations at packed performances, our students continue to inspire us every day. Our staff continues to be the backbone of our success. We welcomed new team members, celebrated retirees, and watched our educators earn well-deserved recognition, including a Presidential Award winner and a Crystal Apple honoree. Professional learning, leadership, and growth were center stage this year. Together with our community, we've opened a new elementary school, broken ground on a state-of-the-art middle school, strengthened partnerships across Waunakee. Your support has made these milestones possible, from referendum investments, scholarship donations, and anything in between. We're growing, and we're growing stronger together. This year, we've launched new curriculum across grade levels and continued expanding bilingual and social-emotional learning programs. From Act 20 implementation to career and technical education success, we are preparing every student for a bright future, starting right here in our very own classroom. Behind the scenes, our teams have worked hard to keep schools safe, schedules running smoothly, and strong systems supported. We have launched new security protocols at the high school in particular. To expanding our student financial assistance program, we've taken big steps to ensure our systems support every learner and every family in our school district. Warrior Pride was a school display this year. We celebrated sportsmanship, added new teams like boys volleyball and adaptive sports, and watched dozens of student athletes commit to playing at the next level. In Waunakee, excellence isn't just a goal, it's a way of life. This year, we showed what's possible when a community comes together to put students first. I am so proud of where we've been and even more excited about where we are going. Thank you for being a part of this most amazing journey. Together, we are the Waunakee Community School District, and together, we are strong.
There you have it.
Nicely done.
Nice, nicely done.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'll just add one additional piece around our CTE grant reimbursement. I think it's important for you to note We've received $58,703 for CTE reimbursements for the wonderful work that Michelle is doing at the high school. So,
Wonderful.
so, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Busy year.
Very busy. We were booked and busy all the time.
Any other announcements or correspondence this evening?
I have none.
So we are moving on to consent agenda. And there are a couple donations that I want to acknowledge. One, we have all of our pride flags were replaced by the Idea Group, and I want to thank them for that donation. And we also have a saxophone that was donated by Judy and Robert Hughes, and I want to thank them. But we also have a huge, I can't name all the people, but I do want to acknowledge that on May 14th, we had our high school scholarship to graduating seniors. And in that single evening, we had 87 local scholarships that were awarded to 66 graduating seniors, totaling $85,000 from community clubs, organizations, and many of them individual donors that step forward and want to support and value our students and make sure that they get the right send-off for their post-secondary goals. So I just want to acknowledge that huge amount of people in our community that continue to support our students. So we have a nice long list of consent agenda, and I would take them all or pull anything out or answer any questions. Well, I probably won't answer them, but somebody in the room will. Actually, I have one question. Do we know where our F1 visa student is coming from? You do not.
It is attached in there. I thought it did say.
It didn't say where they were coming from, and
I can definitely find out and share that report if you'd like.
doesn't really matter. I just want to be sure that.
Actually, he was an AFS student, or not AFS, an exchange student this year.
Mm-hmm.
And he is going to be back another year to,
Okay,
that's Fran.
that makes sense.
I want to say Argentina, but don't.
But that makes sense,
Yeah,
because,
yeah,
you
he's
know,
already
he has to
here.
pay tuition now to do the F1.
Okay. Yeah, he plays soccer as well. This year he played soccer.
Anybody else have any pull-out or questions? If not, I would take a motion to approve the consent agendas.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Great. What?
Argentina, that's what I thought.
Thank you. So, moving on to board business. Any legislative update? Anything new on the state budget we should know about?
So Joint Finance is going to be considering the DPI budget on Thursday.
All right.
So if you want to write, do it
Do it
tonight.
now.
I mean, WASB made it easy, right? They even have like a pre-filled message you can use, just plug in your name, school district, indicate you're speaking as an individual, not on behalf of the board, but they made it easy.
Good.
You know where it is, Carla? Is it in Madison? 'Cause I know
Yeah,
they
their
go.
hearing room in the Capitol,
Okay.
just
1
on the fourth
o'clock.
So
floor.
I'm thinking of the listening.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the listening.
Again, there is a
That's different.
email address to the joints, so you don't have to even address to a specific person for for input. And so if you want to do it, I'd recommend you might use that link. If you can't find it, let me know.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on to future agendas. Thanks to Rebecca She has kind of secured when and where we will be doing things. Everybody remember that on June 23rd at 5:30, and it may go as late as 7:30, 8 o'clock, we'll be discussing the high school campus, and that is already on our calendars. We have July 9th, 7:30 budget meeting, July 9th, 8:15 facility meeting.
No, we're not doing, is that the one we discussed this morning? The
No, we're
facility
doing
and budget for July?
Yeah, we're doing those.
You are doing, okay. Thank you.
Okay, and then we have two things that I need to kind of have a motion because it involves more of the whole board. We're going to do a tour of the middle and high school, and right now there are just 4 people, but that is a quorum, so we do want to, motion that in, and that's going to be next week, Monday, July 16th at 10 a.m. And where are we going to meet?
How about the middle school office?
The middle school office, okay. So I would take a motion to approve that meeting.
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And if anybody did not sign up and your schedule opens up, feel free to join us. And secondly, we have a summer school workshop date, the August 18th board workshop.
You said school, summer school.
Summer school workshop?
Summer board workshop.
Summer board workshop.
Yes, you got it.
Okay.
There you go.
On August 18th, and we don't have a time, but let's set a time. 5:30? Carly, does that work with you? Or 6, or, it's a Monday, I believe.
5:30 should work.
That's okay with everybody? Okay?
Will
let's
that
just
be
set
here?
that. And we are going, no. We're
To be
gonna-
determined.
To be determined.
Okay.
I'd like to kind of move it
And I
away.
apologize, could you repeat the June special meeting? I'm trying to find it on my calendar. I see it, the 23rd.
23rd.
I found it, thank you.
So next week is the tour, the following week is the meeting, and that will be here.
Yep.
In this room. And the workshop meeting, maybe we'll find a different location. But I need a motion for August 18th, 5:30.
So moved. Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And that's all I have for meetings. And that's all I have on the agenda, so I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you all.